Now, there are both exercises and stretches that you can do which function dually as warm-up and cool-down. You can take your pick as to which you do before, which you do after. Do them all, doesn't matter. Quick anatomy lesson. These are considered the forearm flexors. These are considered the forearm extensors as groupings. Lots of little muscles in here. It's extremely complicated, especially when you get into the wrist area. You have to take extremely good care of your wrists and your forearms because we tend to, as b-boys and b-girls, treat them like a second pair of ankles, which clearly they are not. Especially when you get into moves like walks, where you're really rotating with pressure on the wrist. It can be very hazardous to your continued health as a dancer. What you want to do as far as exercises are two things. First, we'll develop the extensors a bit. What I tend to do is have people straighten their arms like this and then attempt to pull their fingertips towards the shoulders without bending the arm. What that does is it makes your extensors contract and burn like fire. And then what you do without pulling the palm down is make complete fists. Again, look at my knuckles, they're still pulling towards the shoulders. And then full extension, like that. This really, really burns. And you do 10 or 20 of these and you'll be crying. But it's a great way to develop these implicitly weak muscles that are the forearm extensors. For the flexors, we have what are called palm push-ups. What you do is, while kneeling, you place your hands on the floor, shoulder width, lean forwards just a bit so there's a little more weight over the hands, and then without bending the arms, you just push the palms up off the floor. If this is too easy, you pull forwards more. If it's too hard, you pull back a little bit. But you find your comfort zone and then you try to develop it and try to get yourself a little stronger. Notice that I'm not pushing my shoulders back as I push up. I'm really trying to keep that line, my shoulders directly above the point of contact, which is where my calluses are on my hands, yeah? The finger joints, yeah? Those are palm push-ups. Now for a couple of stretches. What you're going to do is for the forearm extensors, stab your elbow into your hip, make a complete fist. Do not open this fist. Stays in a fist no matter what. And then you pull the fist slowly but firmly into the stomach while also trying to pull the elbow more deeply into the stomach. And you get a heck of a stretch that you can feel all the way from the knuckles towards the elbow, the whole length of the muscle. And you, of course, do that on both sides. Okay? For the forearm flexors, we do the same stab, but with an open hand, and pull the fingers down. Again, as you pull the fingers down, you're pulling the elbow more deeply into the torso. And you get a nice stretch here, all the way from the tips of the fingers to the elbow. And again, on both sides. There are many, many more stretches that you can do. You can research them on your own. You may know them already. They're very basic, as simple as just doing these sorts of stretches on the floor. But it can get as complicated as you like. And you should do some research because it's such a complicated joint with 5 hand bones, 8 wrist bones, and 2 forearm bones, and all kinds of interconnections. You need to really do some research and take really good care of your hands. The last stretch that we'll do is again for the extensors, and it's all of my students' least favorite. What you do is you put your fists together and then put the backs of your hands and your forearms on the floor, and then you're going to inhale, and as you exhale, you're going to push up. And I'm not opening my hands at all. And then you want to go a little further by inhaling and then exhaling and pushing up again. Breath is really important when you stretch, and you should know that already. And 3 or 4 breaths, your arms should be straight. So in conclusion, walks are kind of a lost art from the 80s and the 90s, and you tend to not see this anymore. in this form especially, and definitely not in combination with other power moves. Now, I teach all of this stuff in my workshops. This is important because so few people on earth can even do these, let alone do any of the cool stuff with them that once upon a time was fairly common. Now, you should pull this into your repertoire and then think about what you can do with it creatively. There are many variations of all these that are not necessarily straight on, and they fit very well with other power moves, flares, air flares, 90s, all kinds of things. In the 90s, I used to be able to do literally any of these variations up into 90s and back into another variation of the walk without ever bending my arms, or at least without ever stabbing in a turtle position. I was able to do them into and out of air flares. This was normal for me. It was new at the time. It was that those moves, those combos were not common, but they were done. I was doing them and a few other people were at least trying them, and now they're not being done, they're not even being tried. When people do attempt to do walks, they do the other technique, which admittedly is quite a bit easier, which is exactly why it's quite a bit more common. Finally, take really good care of your wrists, just like we did in our cool down. Do those exercises that I was showing you, because they're really valuable and they will really increase your longevity, the longevity of your b-boy, b-girl career overall, not whether you do walks or not. Thank you very much. Peace out.